Mr. Lankford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of these areas apparently we're not going to solve today. I would like to request, Deputy Secretary Hayes, that you would sit down with some of the folks from oil companies and we try to resolve this together at a table, and then we have a hearing saying we don't understand why these companies aren't drilling in these areas and what the permit and the process. It might be for us to get everybody together, and I'll get under oath and I'll start trying to talk this out and be able to resolve it and get everybody together. Would you be open to that kind of conversation?
We'd be delighted to do that. We have had a number of conversations in the Interior Department with CEOs of oil companies right along, and in fact the President's suggestions on how to facilitate more production have come out of the kinds of discussions we've had with CEOs.
You've mentioned several times about production being at this highest level since 2003. Can you name a specific action that Interior or EPA took in 2008 and 2009 to give us this large production in 2010? Which specific action would you point to and say, because we did that in 2008 and 2009, now we have this great production?
I think I can point to probably thousands of actions. The fact that we processed at least more than 5,000 APDs
so those came online within a year and they were out producing right away?
Typically they do, yes. Typically those are the onshore productions that come online.
It seems to be, to me, the market has driven this. When oil went to about $100 a barrel, it's amazing how much production suddenly occurred. And it seems to be that Interior is taking credit for $100 a barrel. What really happened with the market drove that up.
No, that's a very fair point, Congressman.
Okay. Well, see, that's what it's just frustrating to me to keep hearing. You know, we've got this great production. We've got this great production. We didn't have it in the Bush administration. We have $100 a barrel of oil. Every marginal well that's out there is now pumping oil, and we seem to be confusing apples and oranges here. When we start talking about production, our production's at an all-time high. Production's not the issue at this point. Great, I'm glad we have production, but a lot of those are marginal wells. Those are other wells that are already drilled. We need to talk about future exploration, and a lot of this conversation seems to be future exploration. We're talking about you're responding with production. And so that's two different things in that. We need to talk about what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's coming online with that. Let me ask a question of both of you on this. The President put out Executive Order 13563, which deals with regulation and regulatory review, looking backwards on it. Were both of your agencies, have you already submitted your paperwork for that? Because that should be coming out in the next week and a half, those public documents, this preliminary. Both of you have those reviews complete?
EPA has, sir.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Terrific. Look forward to getting a chance to go through that. A major part of that statement, which was a great statement from the President, was talking about all of our regulations need to promote predictability and reduce uncertainty in our regulatory environment. If there's any area that I can tell you from energy companies that I talk to and I interact with in my district, it is this sense of uncertainty. We don't know what the regulations are going to be. The rumors run wild. And while you can say, we haven't done that, there is the perception. Let me give you a for instance. And Administrator Jackson, you mentioned multiple times about natural gas. It's terrific. But if you talk to natural gas companies, they have no idea what's happening in this frac study. And there is a large sense of founded fear that natural gas fracking is about to be crushed, and they can't seem to find any response back on it. Since 1949 in Oklahoma, we've been doing natural gas fracking and oil fracking. This is a long-term use process, and I would invite anyone to come to Oklahoma and drink our water and look at our beautiful land and breathe our air and see it as a terrific state. And as you had mentioned before, the State's preference to permits seems to be being pulled back somewhat, and it's creating this sense of uncertainty in it. My colleague, Mr. Meehan, earlier mentioned about the 316B permits, and you deferred that immediately to the States and said that's a State issue. I can tell you in my State, for the energy companies in my State, they're struggling with EPA right now over 316B because there are bait minnows being killed in one of their cooling ponds, and they're being pushed towards creating a cooling tower costing millions of dollars, which will be passed onto ratepayers for their own cooling pond. It is not creating certainty in what prices are going to be, where they can invest, and what they can do. So, and on the other side of that, dealing with the State preference is not consistent with the actual actions on the field in dealing with 316B, with regional haze requirements. My own State has put up a proposal for dealing with regional haze. It is being rejected by EPA. And so those dynamics don't practice out in real life. It's coming out in your testimony, but in real life examples in my district and in my State, those things don't actually occur. So have a significant, I guess, issue with some of your testimony and what is actually happening on the field.
Well, sir, I'm happy to answer some of those factually. First, with respect to the natural gas companies and their concerns about the study, which again was asked for by Congress. They asked us to do it. That study has been publicly scoped. We had several listening sessions and meetings and hearings to hear input on how the study should be scoped. We've gone through peer review of the scope of the study in a very public forum to do it. In fact, the scope is not yet set for that very reason. So I'm perplexed as to how they could not know what this study is about, because we've gone to great pains to make it a very transparent process.
The
gentleman's time has expired.